Thank you very much, guys, for joining me tonight. I am really blessed that he's here. I'll let him explain who he is and what he does.
Hello, guys. I'm Darion Morris. I'm actually the founder of Decree of Dominion podcast. We specialize in highlighting domestic violence survivors as well as highlighting mental health issues within the community. You can follow me on Spotify at Decree of Dominion, and also on Instagram at Decree Dominion 24, and look forward to bringing great content and hopefully something that is heard here tonight can be resonated with the audience and you can glean from our experiences as we speak and kind of reflect on your own life.
Mental health in the Black community. A lot of incidences that go on in our communities can truly be avoided if you had certain steps in place. And I think getting help or reaching out to those who need help is one of the steps that we should be taking.
Mental health in the Black community is one of those topics that is well known, but individuals in the community, whether it be regardless of age or gender, we kind of shy away from addressing the nitty gritty or addressing that um, truth to mental health. And I honestly, from my stance on it, I think there's different stages, and we'll kind of walk through those three stages of mental health in the Black community throughout the episode here today. But one of the first stages is really the acknowledgement of the behavior. Um, Anything in life, you don't know what's going on until you actually figure out what's going on. And what I mean by that is, if you just look at what one facet of mental health is relationships, and so let's just look at uh, the first relationship you have, regardless of who you are, is your parental relationship. You're born, and to the parents or guardians, and how you're cared for throughout your upbringing, has a direct reflection on who you become as a grown individual. And so that's the first step. Um, that parental relationship is the first step. And that is where um, roughly 80 to 90% of the mental health issues is triggered through is, how an individual is raised. And so I'd like to dive deep into that topic. So Mike, what do you think? What's your take on, parental guidance within the mental health realm?
I think well, I'll piggyback off you a little bit. I think mental health starts at home. Everything starts at home. It starts with your upbringing. It starts with how you were nurtured growing up. If you are a young man and you had that father, that everything with him was stern on how he raised you, and he never gave you a hug, he never embraced you. Um, that as growing up, that's 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 tough. It's how are you to be affectionate with your children? I'll go you one even better. It's even harder for you to be affectionate with your significant other. It all starts at home. And I'm not just saying it's the fathers that do that, because I have been in situations where I've seen mothers simply in the store and they are going to town on their children. Their children like 6 or 7 years old. I mean, disciplining them like they're grown adults. And I, as a man, I can't say anything because I'm a father too. How dare you say something to me if I'm disciplining my child? So I know how it feels, and I wouldn't say anything. But I'm thinking in the back of my head, when they grow up, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough on them. It's going to be rough on anybody they fall in love with or they get involved with. It's going to be rough around the whole family structure. if they decide to even have a family structure. So your mental health and your mental capacity, I believe it starts at home. I'm not. I will take for instance my children. My sons. I am very stern with them. One, because I'm a black man and they're black and they're black young men. So they have to go through this world, and you've heard it before. They have to be 2 times better than the person that they're up against, whether it be a job, whether it be any competition in sports. They always have to be 2 times better. So I'm raising them in that structure, but I'm also raising them. Hey, if dad messes up, it's okay. Listen, guys, I messed this up. 100%. I apologize. Um, you know, so I'm showing them and I'm teaching them two aspects. There's the aspect of you work because they see dad working and they see dad doing what he needs to do to take care of his family. My wife works, she takes care of the family also, but I'm talking about mental stability and mental capability, excuse me, as far as young black men. Um, I wish my wife was here with me because then she can step in and talk because she cultivates the girls and she has groomed them lovely to be young women. And I actually watched a podcast the other day, um, and they were talking about that. And the one thing that I said was, we raise them to be independent and intelligent when the time calls for it. So, meaning if they have to be out on their own, they're okay. But I've also raised them, you're not letting any man disrespect you. Why? Because you've never seen your father do it to your mother, and you damn sure have never seen me do it to you. So we are not going to have and we're not going to have another man come in and do that. So I think it starts at home. For the most part, most of the things that you see today having to do with children and teenagers, we can't understand why he brought a gun into school and he went and started shooting up the school. What was his home life like? What was he taught? Was he taught guns his whole life? I just think the bottom line, man, is it starts at home. For me, anyway, it starts at home. You know,
Awesome.
God,
And
I'm
so
sorry.
that nice. And then that's like I said, that's a key point you actually said there, was that with it starting at home. So I'll give a little bit of my backstory again. You can check out the Create Dominion podcast on Spotify to look at the childhood trauma series and kind of go through my full story. But I'll give a little synopsis. I was raised, by my father, um, to never really make mistakes. Like, I had that hard, stern. If you made mistakes, you were, less than. So, to your point of having to be 2 times better, um, that was especially prevalent, growing up for me, because if it could be as simple as, hey, I forgot to take out the trash, it'd be a whole, issue, a whole case. Or, hey, you brought home a C or a D on your report card, you know, then you get that from both sides, because my mom was very not physical, but she just always, was a good mentally stimulating mother, and always told me, you can do whatever you put your mind to. And she just always, saw greatness in me. So from her side, it was, you can do better. But from the fatherhood side, it was you have no choice, you're less than if you don't at least do the best. And so, to your point, with the mental health of like school shootings, and um, there's suicide rate, depression, anxiety. I just think that, like I said, it starts at home. And that first step, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, um, before you can fix something, you have to recognize that it's broken. And so, we've seen all the interviews after those tragic events where, like people turn to the family and turn to the parents. And so most people, when we turn to the parents after those tragic events, we say, or the parents say, I would have never saw it coming, or I had, my boy's a sweet boy, or kind of, trying to give excuses, or trying to like sugarcoat, the fact that a tragic event took place, and their son or daughter was at the root cause of it. And that's really something that is a real telltale sign, because if you don't know what's going on with your children in your own home, you have no idea what they're doing at school, who they're hanging out with, what's going on in the real world. And that leads me to my that main point is, as a community, we have to first acknowledge within the household what is taking place with our children and with each other. Then from there, we can truly work towards identifying the problem and starting to work towards a solution with your different avenues. And so we'll, like I said, we'll talk through the episode on those different avenues. But I believe that, um, you know, start, just like you're growing a tree, it starts from a seed and it's planted. And so, if you look at a tree, if you notice, once a tree gets big and tall, those are the trees we drive down when we go to the road. But as the branches get longer, you know, the weight gets heavier. And once those branches fall during a storm, if you notice, you're driving down the highway and a tree falls over, you can't get through. And that's how I look at life. You can't get through to progress to where you're heading on life, because the tree just got too heavy and broke the branches.
So then my question to you would be, what do we consider as the tree? Would it be your parents? Would it be the family structure? Would it be something in school that's hindering you from going to the next level? With bullying? What, because that brings on mental stress too at a young age. Just knowing that you got to get up in the morning and go to school, to an environment where you're not liked, to an environment to where you're picked on. So, what would you consider the tree?
That's a great question. I would say all the above. I just remember I'll tell a quick story. When I was in seventh grade, I was actually getting bullied in English class. And I remember we had a substitute teacher there. And I remember the guy's name. His name was John. He was a basketball player on the team. Again, back then I was a fat, chubby kid. Had friends, but like I said, was at the time he was, a tall, skinny, like fit athlete, and so was getting bullied by him in class. And this is right around the time my great grandmother had passed away, and so I just remember kind of having like spazzing out, and all I remember is taking. I had my books, and I just threw them across the classroom, and then stormed out the door. And what had transpired from that was actually one of the books flew and hit the teacher in the face. And so got called down to the principal's office. Actually ended up getting suspended for 10 days and then had to go to mandatory counseling. And so what my story leads to is, first, that's what I want to tell the viewers is, one, seek counsel. Don't wait till um, you explode, or wait till a tragic event or something happens to make you. We want to be proactive, not reactive to seeking help and seeking that higher power and that higher knowledge. And so I just remember meeting with the counselor, and she explained, what I was going through as a young. I was 12 years old at the time. She explained it perfectly, and what she explained was, your your feelings are like a volcano. She said, you're very quiet, reserved. At the time I was very quiet, reserved, not very outspoken. You know, everything that happens to you, hide it in, and it goes into that volcano. And if you study volcanoes, or if you look at a volcano, everything goes to the bottom, the magma, the lava, it all goes to the volume, and then the bottom, and then as the volume increases, as it gets hotter, as the environment, you know, climate starts rising, and it starts to erupt, everything from the bottom rises to the surface and then overflows, and then essentially destroys the land. So the answer to the question, honestly, is all of the above. It's the little things we go through in the community. It could be something somebody said. Um, and it can be anything small. It could be, if you're a woman and you have, um, you know, body image issues, it could be as simple as you going to the store with your friends and picking out a cute dress or a cute shirt and it not fitting right, and them laughing at you like, girl, you need to go a size up, and they all laughing. And, you know, in hindsight, it seems like, you know, just a little, group of friends passing a joke, but deep down, that could have hurt your feelings. But um, what makes it part of the tree is that, and that's what is troubling about the community as a whole, is that we don't readily communicate and identify that situation. Because if you check your friend right there, not rudely, or just say, hey, I don't appreciate the way you said that, and you address it, then that essentially can mitigate and eradicate that mental stress at that part. But since we're not communicating, that small twig, you know, becomes a bigger twig, and then something else happens, and then you go to school and they call you fat, and then um, little things happen, and those twigs, they become small branches, and those small branches become big branches. And as you grow up into adulthood, now that might have happened when you were a 13-year-old teenage girl or a boy. If it's like you trying to put on muscle and you put on a shirt and it's showing your belly, and then now you're 19, 20-year-old young man, and you never dealt with that back then, and everything kind of tumbled over. So now you're faced with a tree that's at its breaking point.
So for a minute, let's live right there for you as a youngster. You with your breaking point. There has been traumatic things that have happened to you. So what I'd like to know is, being the man that you are today, what effective strategies had you have put in place, whether it be you doing it or you getting some assistance from counsel? What have you used that has helped you to cope, and not just so much cope, but to manage and to become who you are today?
That's a great question. I would honestly, the first thing you have to do, and what we've been speaking about all episode, you first have to identify. Um, what I did is I identified, um, like I said, I'm a Christian. I grew up in church. What we call demons. You know, like I said, you believe what you want to be, but you have to identify what troubled you the most with your trauma. I think that's the first step. Once you identify that, hey, this happened to me, this is the demons I'm fighting. Once you identify the fight, then you can actually get the armor and prepare for the fight. And so, one of the first things I did was kind of acknowledge. First, I did is acknowledge that, hey, this happened to me. So for those you don't know, like I said, I am a domestic violence survivor. Me and my mother were survivors. My biological father tried to take our lives when I was 14 years of age. And so again, you can check out my the Creative Union podcast to see that full story. But that's a little bit of my background. And so from that situation, coming up into as a 27-year-old man today, so that was roughly 13 years ago, what I had to learn was, hey, this isn't the end of my story. And anybody viewing, all the viewers, I want you to understand that your voice matters, your story matters, you matter as a person. And one thing that helped me, that I'll mention briefly before I continue, is that um, don't let another person, whatever the envy, the rage, the wrath, the jealousy, you don't want somebody's shortcomings to be your demise. And so, what I had to do as a young man, I was roughly about 16 when this happened, but I had to look in the mirror and say, I don't want let what my father did define my story. You are your own. I want the viewers to know that you get to write your own story. And if you are Christian, you I've been getting really back into the Bible. If you really study the Bible, it's a collection of perspectives from different individuals. And but the coolest thing about um, God in general is that you have free will. So even if he can give you the whole roadmap, and he can say go left and make two rights, and you get to choose if you want to, follow suit, or if you want to go your own path. And so the life in general, you get to direct your own path. And so I want to tell the viewers, don't let traumatic experiences with parents, it could be siblings, it could be um, childhood friends, neighbors, teachers, um, church members, deacons, pastors, whoever has caused you trauma or has severely abused you, your story matters, and don't let what happened to you be the end of your story. And another technique I used is I did a lot of, I always tell people to seek higher counsel. And so what that means is you want to emulate the future that you want for yourselves. And so a big thing that's in today's society is there's honestly a lack in the community of healthy marriages. And so we have a lot of, I call it gift of gab. You're listening to your friends that, can't keep a man, listen to your buddies that, are promiscuous and, can't keep a woman. And, you're, chopping it up, whether you're going out on the weekends or hanging out at the home or talking on the phone, whatever. You're collecting what we call empty knowledge. And that's one very negative thing is when you're seeking higher counsel, you want to seek the right counsel, and you want to fill your brain with and fill your mind with what's necessary to progress you forward. And so one of the things that I would advise the viewers is that um, whatever you want, um, seek. You have to seek and find somebody that has what you want and study that to get what you want. And so, um, just growing up, I would always surround myself with people with great marriages, great relationships. Um, and one of the key things, you also have to stay optimal in your mindset of, hey, this person has a healthy marriage. They've been married, they might be married 20, 30, 15, whatever years. You know, one day I'm going to meet a woman and I'm going to be equipped with the knowledge necessary to have a 15, 20, 30-year marriage. If you want to be fit in the gym, I don't want Dwayne The Rock Johnson's body, but I know that, I'm going to learn from what he does. And then one day I'm going to be able to sculpt my body in the way that I want it. If you're a woman and, you look at, Beyonce or whoever, and you want to be, beautiful, or you want to get the curves or whatever, same thing. I'm not going to have Beyonce's body, but I'm going to have the body that I want, because I studied, greatness. And so it could be with sports. You're never going to be LeBron James. You're not going to be Michael Jordan. You're not going to be Tiger Woods, but you can study their game and study them, and then you can become the best version of yourself and fit it and mold it into your own liking. Another thing I would do is, or another thing I did, um, I studied a lot of motivational um, talks, a lot of books 48 Laws of Power. 48 Laws of Power is one of my favorite books. Another book is Simon Sinek. He's a great author, great motivational speaker. He has a book called The Infinite Game. Another book called Start With Why. And The Infinite Game is a great book because um, it gives you a solid perspective on life. And what a little synopsis of that um, is, there's finite stuff in life and there's infinite stuff in life. Life itself is infinite. What that means is whenever you glow on the glory, what have you, life's still going to go on um, outside of you. But for example, something like a football game or high school, that's finite. You're only in high school 4 years. After your senior year, you're done. A basketball game's only it's 60 minutes or 48 minutes long. With the commercials, about 2 hours. After the game's over, the game's over. And so you want to apply that mindset to your life. Think about your trauma. Even though the trauma has lasting effects, the actual event that caused the trauma was finite. It stopped whenever you have to look at it as a view. I want you to look at it as this did not kill you. You made you stronger, and the event. Hey, the event happened. If you got abused, you got abused. Um, take that. One thing I had to do is really stop feeling sorry for myself. I want all the viewers to know that you're not a victim. Instead of walking around like, oh, my dad did this to me, did this to my mom, oh, woe was me, I need help, I want a handout. I had to stop looking at myself as a victim and realize that, hey, whatever happened when I was 14, well, hey, that event happened, which seemed like a million years, but it was probably a 10-minute event that from what actually happened. From that event, I have the choice to write my own story on what transpires from that event. And so I want all the viewers to know that again, your voice matters, your story matters, and you have to communicate not only to others when you're seeking higher counsel, but one thing I want you to do first is look in the mirror and communicate with yourself. If you believe in God, talk to God and say, "Hey, um, my abuser and the situation of my abuse no longer has power and dominion over me." And you know, I want all the viewers to look in the mirror and say, "I take back my life right now." And from this day forward, I'm going to do what is necessary to progress and to clear the tree, clear the road. Get your excavator to life. Move that tree out of the way.
Amen.
Um, get
Amen.
the get the ladder. Do what you got to do. Throw the branch into the water and get the new tires if you have to get new tires. Because one thing about trauma is once the storm is over and the tree is clear, um, you have to renew yourself. And so, like I said, go ahead and get them new tires in that car. Go to the car wash and get a nice car wash and uh, head on to where you need to be.
Amen. Amen. So there's a couple of key points, and I was trying to write everything down, um, but you touched on quite a few of them. One of the things that I want to talk about now, you refer to the Bible. I look at the Bible as 66 books of answers, of pure answers. Just about everything that's ever transpired and going on in your life, the Bible has something to say on it, and there's a resolve for it. So this is what I've learned. So just listening to your story, you've been through a lot. But what I enjoy about it is that it hasn't knocked you down. Getting to know you, from what I take, it's to this was all to raise you up, which is to me, from what I'm gathering, it has. So I have a question. Um, Are you a dad?
Yes, father of
Or
twin boys.
how are you, being that you started the conversation and you explain your background and what has transpired with you? And to God be the glory, man, that he brought you out of it, and you're here, you're a walking example of strength. So to God be the glory for that. How is your communication with your sons? And how old are they, by the way?
They'll 6 years old. They'll be seven this year, November the
Okay.
15th.
So how is your relationship with them? Because I'm sure, yes, they're twin boys, and I'm assuming they're identical. So yes, they look exactly alike, same height, same weight, same eyes, everything, but their mindsets are different. How do you handle their different thought patterns, especially being from what you've come from? How do you manage? Because you'll have one twin that's really rambunctious and want to get into everything, want to do everything, and then the other twin is more not so much laid back, but he's more conscious of what could possibly happen. How do you manage that? I'm just curious because I know how I do it. How do you manage that?
That's a great question. And so, Caden actually, so it's Caden and Jason. Caden's the oldest by 4 minutes. He'll definitely let you know if you meet him. Caden
Mhm.
really, like I said, he's that they call it honorary, but he's that I want to say like unfiltered, raw, like bundle of joy inside a 6 year old. So he actually reminds me most like myself. I'm always been both my sons are independent like me, but Caden, he's the one that gets you in trouble. He's always into something, very curious. Actually, the other day I was cooking. He can actually like pick out the seasonings. So I was seasoning some steak. I was dry browning the steak. He said, "Hey, that's garlic powder. You use salt, pepper, and garlic powder." I know how to cook, and so um
And how
he's
old
the
is he
out.
again?
He's
How old?
sick,
Wow. Wow. That's a
and
future chef right there.
right, and he's the like the ringleader, like the charismatic, um, always into something first, always the headstrong. I'll tell a quick story. When they were younger, toddlers, we were playing outside. Um, it's not every year, but every few summers you get those big like cicada bugs that fly around. And I just remember Jason, and so Jason, he's that quiet reserve. Like he'll watch Kate and do everything. Um, and like I said, he's the one that watches Kate get in trouble. Like, and he's real not real quiet, but he'll stay to himself. He'll play with his toys. He's very like to the point. Tell me what to do, I'll do it. I'm not curious. If I say, hey, if you want, you can go play with your toys. He say, okay. He'll play with his toys the whole day till it's time to eat or it's time to go to bed. But Caden's the complete opposite. And so I remember one time we were playing outside and one of the bugs flew on Jason's arm. And, Jason's, freaking out. It's like, bug, get it off me. And then Caden, he's a curious one. He actually picked the bug up by his two fingers and let it fly away. And he's just always been that curious, um, outgoing twin, whereas Jason. And so how I deal with it is one thing I had to learn. As they're still obviously still growing, is you have to teach them different. You know, Kate and I have to be a little bit more harder on or more stern, just because, like I said, and he's he knows how to lock the door for you. He'll ask me before we leave somewhere. He'll say, "Hey, you got your keys and your phone and your wallet." He'll make sure I don't forget anything. He's like he reminds me. I actually have a younger sister that's 3 years younger than me. He actually reminds me of me when me and my sister are growing up, and me when we're at my mother and stepdad's house when we have family dinners and holidays. We'll actually laugh and talk about like back then, when we'll watch the twins do something, and me and my sister, I'll be like, I remember when you used to do that stuff. And it's funny because Jason kind of acts just like my sister did, whereas Caden acts just like me. And so, and it's always that, twins, that all that bickering. Caden, like I said, he's that headstrong. So he'll be like, wake up, it's time for school. Um, it's time to eat. Or he'll be like, hey, your food's ready, Jason. It's time for us to eat. And, Jason will be like, would you leave me alone? You're not the boss of me. And so it's just kind of funny seeing, those two different personalities uh, kind of
You know,
meshed up.
because I'm thinking now that you're saying that, I'm saying with the girls, like, so the oldest one, she used to be very bossy. She used to be very bossy, but now that they're older, it's like the youngest twin had, like, the roles have reversed. So the youngest twin, she's more like the mother figure almost. You know, she's not bossy. She's very matter of factly. All right, so it needs to be done this way. You have to go. You can't be late for class. You have to be there on this time because they're in college now. So you know, um, but twins are exciting. I love to be around them, not just because they're my children, but just to experience looking at the same exact person, but two totally different mindsets. It really is amazing. So I'm sorry, man. Let's get back. Let's get back because I'll be talking about them all day. Um, Mental health in the Black community. You know, I think one of the reasons why mental health is the way it is amongst us is good lack of good to excellent health care. Yes, we had what's called they've changed the name so many times now, but I know it as the Obamacare. Um, yes, we have that, but even to when you get that and you try to select doctors, the majority of the very good doctors these days don't accept it. So what do? You have to deal with what's left over. And I think a lot of that, man, if you don't have the job capacity to in order to pay for proper medical care, you kind of just left by the wayside. Because I know for a fact, man, that a lot of people and a lot of situations, the roles could have been reversed if they had the adequate care. There's a lot to this puzzle. There's a lot to this puzzle, and I know this is not going to be the only conversation you and I have about this. Um, so I shake my head, man, because you just you feel for them and you want to help them, but in the back of your mind, and if you didn't think this, there's something wrong with you. In the back of your mind, you're like, oh well, if I go to extend my hand, are they going to try to hurt me? Because of what society has said about them and has labeled them as. Half the people that are walking around with mental disabilities are not crazy. They're not crazy. They need help like everybody else. So I'm sorry, man. This is something, like I said, we could talk about 3, 4 parts of this series. Um, I again, thank you so much, man, for bringing this to me. This is really interesting. It has made me, when you brought this to me, it made me go back and really do my reading on it and dive a little deeper into it and just realize how much of our people are affected by mental health. And everybody, just so the world knows, and I'm sure you do, but everybody that's walking around outside that has a mental health issue is not walking around with their clothes all beat up, living in the streets or whatever. No, it's the same guy that's going to work who sits right next to you in the same cubicle. It's the same woman that's driving in her car right next to you on the highway, and y'all going to work or the store. But poor health care, you only feeding the fire. You don't have adequate health care. There's really no place that they can go to get any kind of, I won't even say adequate at this point, I'll say decent. And then when you do round them up, because I'm a New Yorker, man, and I've witnessed it. When you do round them up, you put them all in a wagon and you take them all to jail for night in the jailhouse. That's not helping them. I've seen it. It's not helping them. So for me, this is really touchy, man. This is really touchy. So I thank you again for bringing this to us.
And you said one of the things you said early on when you were speaking is I feel like as a community, a lot of us have developed that whatever's left over mindset. Um, if you really look at every aspect of the mental health in the Black community, look at um, intimate relationships. It's I want the viewers to look at themselves in the mirror. How many times you went back, if you're single or you're in a relationship or what have you, whatever, married, just look on the past. How many times you went back to an ex girlfriend or ex boyfriend, um, just because? And so I just think that um, as a society and a community, we've grown to that whatever's left mentality. And within the healthcare, like I said, it is honestly sad because, especially with mental health, when it comes to psychiatrists, counselors, etc., therapists, um, it's very, you want to be very meticulous because you're sharing intimate, vulnerable information with these individuals, and so you want to be very meticulous in your approach, and you want to find the right candidate to fit the needs that you may have. And not having that adequate healthcare limits your options, and so you're left with that, whatever's left. um, Dollar Tree, bargain bin, clearance rack mentality. Like I said, go ahead and follow the Create Dominion podcast on Spotify. Again, we just released the mental health series, episodes 1 and 2 at midnight today, as well as another one of our Decree and Dominion Uncut series interviews, where I interview domestic violence survivors and go through their story. It's been a pleasure sharing here with My Truth podcast. Again, a lot of future episodes planned. So definitely, if you're viewing, stay tuned. And what I want you to take away from this is, as I always challenge all viewers whenever I'm speaking, um, don't look at our story as motivation, but look in the mirror and apply it to your own story. Maybe maybe my story doesn't resonate with you directly. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's a school friend, an old Facebook friend. Maybe they posted something on Facebook and you said, "Wow, um, that's a tough story." I actually listened to a podcast where a guy had a similar, and it may help you glean some motivation that you can apply into your daily life. And so, been a pleasure sharing with you. Like I said, your story matters. Your truth matters, and your you're not a victim. You're a survivor. And I just want all the viewers to know that. You know, and I want them to be empowered to be able to speak on podcasts like this. Thank you.
Listen, I thank you very much for joining me, man. And I really look forward to doing more of this. I knew and I understood from day one when we did your podcast. I said, yeah, this can go somewhere. this can go somewhere. I'm really, really grateful. I'm really, really grateful. Ladies and gentlemen, um, this is episode 1. He's agreed to come back on and speak more about this. I'm Mike. This is My Truths Podcast. Take care.